Sada će nas u temu Reaching the and underorganized uvesti naš kolega Florian Wilde, koji radi u berlinskoj centrali Rosa Luxemburg Stiftunga. Inače, Florian ima dugu historiju i u društvenim pokretima i u sindikatima u kojima je radio, isto tako i u političkoj partiji, odnosno u Die Linkeu. Tako da će on ova pitanja ove teme adresirati kombinirajući svoje iskustva iz svih tih triju perspektiva. Nakon Florianovog predavanja uslijedit će diskusija. Molim vas da se za diskusiju javljate i da ne govorite bez mikrofona. Mikrofon je također u zadnjem redu kod našeg Miloša. Florian, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Thank the organizers much for the invitation. I'm very glad to be here and to give those opening keynote for this day today. I try to speak standing, as it's quite early in the morning. I hope everyone will get more on track like this. We will try. What I want to talk about at this opening keynote today is I would like to discuss a broad picture of the situation of the trade union movement, of its crisis, and of possible counter strategies. And I mean, I would like to address some fundamental problems we as trade unionists are facing nearly all over the world. I would like to give some proposals for left-wing strategies and answers on how to deal with it. I mean, just proposals, things we can discuss. And my perspective is the perspective of someone who lives in Germany, and my trade union work for the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation is mainly focused inside Germany. My perspective is like on Germany, Western Europe, and US. I would try to generalize from these experiences, hoping that they will fit also for the situation in the Balkans and other areas. So, okay, first, I would like to discuss with you the crisis of trade unions. I want to say something about the roots of this crisis. I would discuss some counter strategies, and I would ask the question what role left parties, left organizations could play in the renewal of the trade unions, and always trying to link this with the question of the and underorganized. So let's start with the set topic of the crisis of the trade union movement. I mean, all of you will be aware of it, that, I mean, since the late 70s and early 80s, we have seen a global offensive of capital that has massively and worldwide weakened the workers' movement and its unions. Everywhere on the globe in the last 30 years, capital is pushing for lower wages for the workers, less benefits for the workers, more precarization also through short-time contracts and so on. They're using outsourcing and subcontracting as weapons also to weaken the working classes, and they're attacking the unions all over the globe. The workers' movement and its unions have not been very successful in confronting this capitalist offensive. So like everywhere we see wages are stagnating or even declining, whereas the profits of capital are exploding. And one of the reasons for our disability to confront this process, to confront this capitalist offensive, has been the massive weakening of the trade union movement. I mean, for example, in Germany, in 1990, we had 12 million members in unions. Nowadays, it's only 6 million. So we lost half of our membership. If we look to the United States, in 1980, 24% of the total workforce, so every fourth worker, 1, 2, 3, 1 in 4 workers has been a member of a union. Nowadays, it's less than 12%. So also there, it's gone by half. If we look at the OECD countries, those industrialized countries, we have the same picture. In 1985, 30% of workers have been in a union. Nowadays, it's only 17%. And with the unions getting ever weaker, our ability to guarantee collective bargaining that covers most workers have been also weakened. So in 1985, 35% of the workers in OECD countries, so nearly half of all the workers in OECD countries, were covered by collective bargaining. Nowadays, it's less than 33%. And you notice when a union starts to lose members and gets significantly weaker, a very problematic circle starts. The less members a union have, the weaker it is, the less it is able to really defend the workers' rights and to defend the benefits and to guarantee collective bargaining, and the less attractive it gets for a worker to join a union, and so the union gets weaker again, and this whole circle continues. And if we compare the decline of trade union membership on the one hand with the exploding profits of capital on the other hand, the picture becomes clear, I think. I mean, you all know those numbers. The 8 richest people on this globe nowadays own as much as half of the population on this planet. And this is a result of this process of unions getting weaker, of wages falling, and capitalist profits exploding. I think it's one of the fundamental questions of humanity, is those inequality in terms of wealth? And if we think about how to challenge it, rebuilding a strong trade union movement has to be a core element into fighting those inequality. But what are the reasons for the trade union decline? I think there are 2 sets of reasons. I think on the one hand, we have, let's say, objective reasons that are rooted in the changes of the capitalist mode of production. And on the other hand, we have subjective reasons that lie in the politics and strategy and ideology of the trade union movement itself. I want to start with the objective reasons. Since the 1970s, we have seen a massive wave of reconstruction of the capitalist modes of production due to automatization, digitalization, and globalization. The big factories in the northern world mostly have gone. I think you all will know examples like this. I was born in Kiel, a port city, in the 1970s. In our port, 40,000 workers were working. Nowadays, it's less than 4,000. All those big centers of like factories, mining, car industry, and so on, where tens of thousands of workers used to work, mainly have gone in the northern world. Some they have been transferred to the south. And also because of like subcontracting and outsourcing, workers nowadays work often in much smaller entities, in much smaller companies. And even if workers work in the same factory, they often belong to different companies. So you have workers working together, but belonging to different companies, having different contracts, getting different wages, and so on. So there are many new lines of fragmentation and division inside of the working class. Often we have core sectors in some industries like cars, for example, automobile industry. In Germany, those core sectors with a fixed contract, they still are getting good wages and have a quite okay working life. But around them is a huge area of precarious workers with very, very bad conditions. This neoliberal concept of the breathing factory, where you have a small core of workers that work fixed contract, and many workers around them, like breathing factory. If the economy is good, the factory inhales many precarious workers and gives them job. And when the economy is bad, they kick them out. So hiring and firing of precarious workers around the core sectors, which once again means new lines of divisions and new splits inside of the working class. And often those core sectors are still unionized, whereas the precarious workforce around them is non-organized or under-organized. So, okay, the result is an atomization of the class, spread it in many smaller workplaces, a fragmentation with new lines of division, and especially divisions between like core sectors and precarious workers around. Another very important reason for the weakening of the trade unions, I just can touch briefly, is the globalization, where with these technological changes, capital has started to reconstruct also globally with like global change of production as a tool to organize the capitalist economy, with putting workers into competition with each other of different countries, blackmailing the workers, like capital is saying, okay, or you accept a lower wage, or we will go to another country with even lower wages. And so the whole position of the working class in the whole sphere of production has become much weaker. And the bastions, you say, bastions, the fortresses of workers' powers of the 70s, I mean, in the heart of the capitalist production model of the 70s, like mining, like the car factories, the ports, and so on, there were strong workers' organizations. There was a kind of workers' power at the heart of capitalist production. Nowadays, the new heart of capitalism, like let's say at Apple or at Uber or at Amazon, there is hardly any unionization at all. There is no workers' power in the heart of the new model of capitalist production. In the days of the bigger factories, it was easier for us to organize. If you have one factory with thousands of workers, you have to go there. If you have 100 of workplaces, you have to go to 100 of places, which is much more difficult. Also, class consciousness, the self-understanding of the workers that they are part of a class, was coming like more naturally out of the old model. If you work together with tens of thousands of other workers, every day you go to a factory, you see tens of thousands of other people living the same life, the same conditions. It's quite easy to understand, okay, we have something in common, we have the same interests, we are part of a class. Nowadays, it's much more difficult. It's not so much coming out of the modes of production, the class consciousness, but I think it has to be actively recreated through spaces where workers come together, like in demonstrations or big strike movements and so on. We have to intervene and create spaces where the experience of collectiveness, of collective action, and of the reconstruction of class consciousness can happen. So the processes I was talking about have also put the whole model of social partnership into a deep crisis. Social partnership, this model that has been so dominant in the trade union movement, at least in Western Europe and the industrialized countries, has come into a big crisis. I mean, after World War II, in most Western countries, models of a social partnership or a compromise of classes were developing. Social partnership means that the union is saying, okay, we will not radicalize worker struggles too much. We will not make big anti-capitalist strikes. We will not go with the communist. And as a deal, as an exchange, capital was saying, okay, but you will get slightly higher wages every year, better working conditions, and less working hours. A model where both sides, at least in a way, both sides are profiting a little bit. But this model of social partnership of the 1970s, or of the 50s till 70s, had a material base, on the one hand, in a very much growing economy, 6% of growth in the 1960s. Nowadays, it's less than 3%. So it was easier for capital to give something away, like it was easier for capital to compromise with the workers. And on the other hand, there were strong unions and strong workers' movement, and capital was really scared about us. They were scared that there might happen some kind of workers' uprisings or revolutions, or that the workers' movement go with the communists, and so on. So we had the power also to force capital into some kind of like compromise or partnership or whatever. But already since the early 80s, capital has in reality quitted any social partnership orientation. Lower rates of economic growth meant that there's less space for compromise. And as the trade union power was declining, we have not been able to force them into any kind of new, real, whatever compromise or partnership. So capital has started a brutal wave of class struggle from above from the early 80s on. The fundamental problem is that many trades unions until nowadays behave as if we would still live in an age of social partnership and a compromise of classes. So whereas capital is absolutely clear about their strategies, I mean, they are attacking us on every level worldwide very systematically, knowing exactly what they are doing. Our side is still thinking, okay, when we behave nice, we might go back on the table and we might find some new compromises and so on. So the main organizations of the working class, the trade unions, are not answering the escalation of class struggle from above with an escalation of class struggle from below. The question is why. And this leads us to the second level of explanation for the crisis of the trade unions. This is the subjective factor. This is the sphere of ideology, of politics, of strategies, and so on. And I think, one very important reason for our problems nowadays is that after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Eastern Bloc and the so-called real socialism, socialist alternatives are really discredited also among workers. So we really lost the point of hope or orientation or whatever, and this is part of our weakness. One of the results of the fall of the Berlin Wall has been that social democracy has moved massively to the right in most countries. And in many countries, like in Germany or many European countries, the trade unions are very much linked, very closely linked to the social democracy. So when the Social Democratic Party became agents of neoliberalism and the leadership of trade unions has been social democratic and totally linked to those neoliberal projects, this was creating huge problem for our side. Any break with social partnership, any reorientation of trade unions towards class struggle from below becomes nearly impossible if you have a leadership that is part of those neoliberals in the end attacking us. And in many European countries, the most brutal attacks on the workers have been carried out by social democratic-led governments. For example, in Germany, when we had those coalition government of Social Democratic Party and Green Party, they were doing the most heavy attacks in decades on us. They were imposing the laws that led to an explosion of a low-wage sector, of precarious work, of part-time work. They were attacking the unemployed, our pensions, and so on. And normally you would expect a trade union to stand up and fight and say, oh, we will organize a general strike against it if you are attacking us. But the opposite was happening. The trade unions did not only not fight against it, but became part of it with some most important members of the cabinet, of the ministers of those governments have been trade unionists by themselves. So the most brutal attacks on our class in Germany have even the names of trade unionists, like Hartz IV, those laws against the unemployed, having the name of a trade union leader, and so on. In a situation where many workers identify social democracy and trade unions as part of an establishment that is attacking us, it becomes even less attractive for unorganized workers to join a union because they think, oh, you have been part of those attacks against us. So why should I organize with you if you are among them attacking us? So it makes it even harder for our side to reach the non-organized. So to summarize until here, the crisis of the workers' movement and the trade unions has its roots, on the one hand, in the changes of the capitalist mode of production, on the other hand, in the ideology, strategy, and politics of the trade union movements itself. The workers' movement, the working class, has become fragmented, atomized, and demoralized, and its role in the production has been weakened, although the numbers of workers is growing globally. Ever more people are working. I mean, the working class is not shrinking, it's growing. But it has become weaker in its level of organization and representation. So in the second part of my contribution, I would like to discuss possible counter-strategies for left-wing unionists and the role left parties and movements could play in it. And I like to argue for a multi-level strategy that pushes for a practical renewal of the trade unions by pushing for organizing unions, for a social movement unionism, for more democratic unions, and to a transnational organizing along the global change of capitalist production. And our aim should be to make the unions stronger again and also more militant through a conflict orientation towards capital, understanding that there is no space for social partnership anymore. There is no way back to the old days. The material base of social partnership has gone. We have to develop something else. We have to develop a more confronting approach towards capital as a trade union movement. And on the other hand, I will argue that we have to politically challenge the orientation towards social partnership inside of the trade unions, to challenge the domination of neoliberal social democracy inside of the trade union movements, and to fight for more competitive and democratic unions. I mean, the good news is that there is a broad debate inside of the union movement about the renewal of trade unions. Many trade unions understand that we face fundamental, serious problems and that we have to search for new solutions. So there is a broad debate. The left should be part of this debate and should intervene in it. And I want to present some parts of this debate. I think one key element in the debate of trade union renewal is a debate about organizing strategies. The role model for this new debate about organizing are experiences of some trade unions from the United States that have very successfully organized precarious workers like the cleaners. And I'm very glad that Sam Nelson is here. I don't know if, I mean, he's, good morning. Sam Nelson is here. He will later on talk about experiences from the US also regarding organizing and so on. So, I mean, in the US, some trade unions have made good experiences in how to organize precarious workers. Many unions around the world are trying to grab those experiences also for them. And Organizing seems to be very fancy and new, although it in reality means something very old. Something that the unions have beginning back in the days of the beginning of the workers' movement. That means the union has to go there where workers are and organize them. And to do this, the union needs to employ organizers that go and organize the workplaces. It's not enough if a trade union secretary sits in his office and waits for the workers to come to say, hey, we want to build a union and what can we do and so on. No, the trade union has to go there where workers are and organize them. I mean, it sounds very natural, but for Germany, this has been kind of a totally new intervention. Back in the old days of the 1970s, with the big factories, there was no need for an organizing union. The union was represented in the big workplaces. There have been workers' councils and so on. So the union was part of workers' life. Nowadays, with having like hundreds of smaller entities around the city, there is no union representation at all. And if we want to reorganize those factories, we have to go there. And to be able to go there, we have to change the structure of the union away from a big apparatus and service orientation of the union and doing like service things for their members, but to an organizing union that employs organizers that go to workplaces to organize workers. I mean, it's kind of simple, but also something, at least in Germany, quite challenging. I mean, still in Germany, for example, at Volkswagen, we have a unionization degree of 95% around the core workers. Imagine if the cleaners or the construction workers would have a unionization degree of 95%. They would not have so bad wages at all. The reason for their low wages is hardly any unionization. So unions have to go there and try to organize those workers. So I think this is the first point, to make unions stronger again and to start to reorganize the non and under-organized. Left forces in and around the unions should push for an organizing orientation of the trade union movement. The second element of the debate about trade union renewal is called social movement unionism. And it's obviously, as many unions have become so weak, are not reaching the under and non-organized anymore, we have to search for a new way, a new model of unionization. And we need to break with the concept of the trade union mainly as a bureaucratic apparatus and transform the unions once again into vivid bodies of a workers' movement fighting for our rights and demands and purposes and so on. We need unions that become a social movement of the workers, focusing on the workplaces, but also targeting other areas of workers' life. For example, like housing or transport or social system, as Boris was explaining yesterday, that we need to fight for reconstruction of like having good hospitals and childcare and so on. All these are parts of workers' life, and trade unions as a social movement have to, at the one hand, organize in the workplaces and at the same time target other areas of workers' life. And to do this, we have to build alliances with other social movements and left parties and progressive organizations. I think this kind of like social movement unionism that is targeting different levels of workers' life and is orientating on like campaigns and demonstrations in communities can also be a tool of reaching non and under-organized workers, because they're not so much focused on small workplaces, but on broader movement where it's possible or necessary to involve also unorganized and non-organized workers. One example for social movement unionism, I would say, is the campaign around hospitals in Germany. I don't want to go into the details, as Win Windisch in the next keynote will be talking about this, but this would be an example of how a union has built alliances with social movements and the broader public to wage their fight. Other elements of a renewal of trade unionism I can just touch very briefly. I just want to mention them. I think one important point has to be a democratization of the union. I think to make unions strong again, the members have to have the feeling and to make the real experience that the unions are their unions, that the unions belongs to them and not to any bureaucracy, leadership, or apparatus. If workers have this understanding of a union, they will relate totally different towards their union and take them much more serious if they understand it is their union. So I think an important challenge for left-wing trade unionists is the struggle for a democratization of the trade unions. We also have to politicize the trade union movement in a way that Boris was mentioning yesterday in a struggle for infrastructure, for example. Trade unions must not stand away if hospitals are privatized or if transport is privatized or if there is no care for the children or whatever, but trade unions have to engage into this, building alliances with others and repoliticize the trade union work, not only targeting the workplaces itself, but also broader sphere of workers' life. And last point on this, we have to develop a way of transnational organizing along the global chains of capitalist production. I can't go deeper into it. My colleague Stefanie Krohn, for example, will touch this later on in a workshop. But it's obviously, in a world where for capital exists no borders, the workers' movement must not stop organizing at national borders, but we have to organize internationally all along the capitalist chains of production throughout the world. It's easy to say, very hard to do. We will discuss later on, but it's one of the main strategic questions I think the trade union movement is facing. No, yeah. We're now at like 25 minutes.
10 minutes ahead, yeah.
So, no, I have still time. Yeah. Thank you for the applause, but I'm not finished. They told me like I have 35 minutes. We're like 20 now, I think, or 25. So 10 minutes left. I was talking about what to do in terms of like renewal of trade unions. I think the other important element is to challenge social partnership. I think any renewal of unions must also have an impact on the political, ideological, strategical orientations of the unions. And unions must understand that the age of social partnership has gone. Capital is waging a war against us, and we need to answer with struggle against it. This strategy of unions can no longer be to alliance itself with a neoliberal social democracy that has become an agent of neoliberalism. And instead of like this concept of social partnership and going together with social democracy, we need a clear orientation on conflict towards capital and the capitalist governments, because they will not give us anything just because we are so nice and friendly and never make trouble, and so therefore we will get better wages. It's not at all like this. Yeah? They will only give us higher wages and more benefits and so on if we redevelop the power to really force them to. So I think to break with the concept of social partnership and to renew the trade unions are two sides of the same coin. This also has to be done because there are very negative consequences of social partnership that is always undermining a class-based solidarity. If the workers and the management of a company are partners, and the company is in competition with other companies, also the workers are set into competition with other workers. Yeah, this model of social partnership is always undermining class-based solidarity. And often social partnership means a partnership between the management and the core workers, excluding the precarious ones around them. So social partnership really has become an obstacle for renewing the trade union movement and for reaching the non- and under-organized. The last issue I want to touch is the potential role of left parties and organizations, and also of institutions like the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation in this process. The things I've been talking about until now, of like trade union renewal, break with social partnership, and so on, none of this will just come by itself. Nothing of this will just happen out of itself. It all deserves the intervention of organized left forces inside of the union and outside of the unions. The debate around trade union renewal inside the union movement means that there are new spaces now. I mean, many unions are experimenting with new models, so things are changing. I think we have to be part of this debate. We have to be part of those changes inside of the trade union movement, pushing it forward and fighting for an emancipatory perspective, because all those things like organizing can mean very different things in reality. Organizing can just be a tool of a trade union leadership to recruit new members, and that's it. But it can also be a tool for changing the union, for shifting the balance of forces inside of the unions away from the leadership towards the workers, which I would think is an emancipatory approach towards organizing. What kind of things will happen in reality will also depend on how left forces inside the unions and outside the unions behave and intervene. So I think that left unionists can make a really difference in these processes of a renewal of the trade unions. But often the left inside the unions is also quite weak and deserves the support from left-wing forces outside of the union. In Germany, for example, my party, Die Linke, is trying to bring the demands of the trade unions into the parliament and into the public and being the voice of trade union demands in public, which I think is a very important part of what left parties have to do. At the same time, we try to mobilize concrete support for workers' struggle. So for example, when the hospital workers are going on strike, are doing demonstrations, we will go there, we will be at the demonstration, we will mobilize, we will bring other workers there, we will use our contacts and connections as a left party to bring the workers of the hospitals together with other workers we have contact with, and so on. So really and practically trying to support workers' struggle. We also try to help to reorganize the left-wing forces inside of the union as a left party, bringing together militant and left-wing trade unionists, opening up spaces for debates and discussions, how to challenge social partnership, how to challenge neoliberal social democracy, how to make a contribution to the renewal of trade unions. I think left parties can play an important role bringing activists together and opening up those spaces. And we try to offer the trade unions a political alternative to neoliberalism, trying to offer them a model of society that fits for the workers and to give trade union an alternative political orientation. As Rosa Luxemburg Foundation in Germany, we are also trying to offer spaces where workers can come together. For example, I mean, in Amazon, for years, those workers are struggling to get a good contract. And the company is so strong, the workers are very weak. And the trade union is supporting them, but not in the way that we think it would be necessary. They do not go far enough and do not everything that's possible. So we try to organize sessions where we invite Amazon workers from different workplaces to organize an exchange about strike strategies and tactics and what was successful and how to organize and so on. So to open up spaces where an exchange about experiences can happen as a contribution to the process of renewal. And we try to do a lot of research about worker struggle because, I mean, under these difficult conditions today, many workers are standing up and fighting and doing things, for example, at Amazon, which is very difficult. So what we can try to do is to do research. How do they organize? What are the experiences? Make a pamphlet out of it, give it to workers in other factories and companies so they can learn from their experiences. So to sum up, I think for making unions strong again in the 21st century, we need organized activities of left-wing forces inside the unions and outside of the unions, pushing for a renewal of trade unions, for organizing strategies, for social movement unionism, for organizing against along the global chains of capitalist production, and at the same time politically challenge the orientation of social partnership. And I think both has to be done, and both things go together. Often it's not only the case that the trade union has a leadership that does not want to fight. Even if they want to fight, often the trade unions have become so weak that even if they would, they cannot really fight. So I think those both things always have to do together. We have to put all our weight into the renewal of the trade unions, and at the same time fight for a political alternative inside the trade union movement. Yeah, thank you very much for being here and listening and being so concentrated.
Hvala. Bilo je vrlo informativno i inspirativno predavanje, o čemu vjerujem da svjedoči i onaj prekid pljeskom. Imamo sada nekih 10 minuta za raspravu prije kafe pauze. Tako da bi vas pozvao da se javite za diskusiju. I ako možete, znači, da se ustanete i predstavite prije postavljanja pitanja.
Ja sam sociolog Nada Novaković, bavim se sindikatima i tranzicijom.
Samo sekundu, molim vas, ne radi.
Hvala. Hvala kolegi na dobrom izlaganju i koje me postiče na diskusiju. Ja bih, pošto imamo malo vremena, samo dala jednu skicu sindikalne scene u Srbiji. Pre svega, opadanje sindikalnog članstva je pravilnost u zemljama u tranziciji. U Srbiji se stiglo od 2000, recimo, od 45% na 1/3 zaposlenih, sindikalno organizovanih, među kojima možemo izdvojiti nekoliko većih sindikalnih centrala, među kojima su, znači, UGS i samostalni sindikat reprezentativni, a svakoj od njih, bar još dve manje sindikalne centrale, često osporavaju reprezentativnost. Najveća strateška greška, namerna ili ne, sindikata u Srbiji jeste da se niko nije suprotstavio procesu privatizacije kroz kojih je uništena društvena svojina. Prema ekonomskim podacima, vrednost kapitala društvenog u privredi Srbije 90. godine, znači na početku tranzicije, bila je 175 milijardi američkih dolara. Danas se može reći da je skoro završena privatizacija, a od tog prodatog kapitala stiglo se do sume od neke 2,7 milijardi dolara, što je blizu evra, što je blizu i tim američkim dolarima. Privatizacija je menjala socijalnu strukturu, a iznad svega uništavala materijalnu osnovu i radničku klasu, pa i sindikate. Samo za 10 godina, od 2001. do 2010. a to su strani podaci, iz Srbije je ilegalno otišlo 51 milijarda evra. Znači, privatizacija je privukla špekulativni prljavi novac, a istovremeno je razvlastila radničku klasu i ostale socijalne grupe koje su na njoj živele, da bi napravili novu socijalnu strukturu. Pre svega nastala je kapitalistička klasa na periferiji kapitalizma. Sindikati u tome ne da se nisu snašli, nego su taj proces pomagali. Kako? Pa nisu imali strategiju protiv privatizacije, nisu zaštitili svoje članstvo, ja se izvinjam, i pored toga imali su neoliberalni koncept i tranzicije i privatizacije koji je samo od 2008. pa ovamo ubrzao propast. Ja ovde zastupam tezu da su naši sindikati, a ne samo oni, dozvolili da se uništi ovo društvo, a pre svega privredna industrija, do 2008. godine. Ekonomski podaci su potvrdili da je nivo industrijske proizvodnje danas, recimo, u Srbiji manji od samo 1/3, one iz 1990. a po obimu proizvodnje smo negde u 1972. godini. Naravno, i životni standard nam se srozao, a broj zaposlenih u industriji je za posljednjih 15 godina opao za 700.000, što je ukupno najmanje 1.000.000 radnika iz industrije nestalo tokom tranzicije od 25 godina Srbije. Osim toga, onaj nivo zaposlenosti u industriji danas je manji nego 1960. I sad mi imamo jedan presek od 5 decenija najmanje, gde je nestajala osnova materijalne radničke klase, a posebno industrije. Pomenula sam te podatke u industriji i društvenom proizvodu, ne bih, ali bih samo rekla da poslednji događaj na sindikalnoj sceni, kao što su recimo štrajk u Goši i u Fijatu, pokazali su svu nemoć sindikata Srbije i gde je njihovo mesto kao navodnih socijalnih partnera. Nemoguće je da dve sindikalne centrale u Goši nisu mogle da znaju da 5 godina ne primaju, nisu uplaćeni fondovi, nije uplaćeni doprinosi za zdravstvo i penzijno osiguranje. Drugo, kad je taj štrajk već bio, a jedan čovek se ubio, drugi pokušao, ništa nije pomerilo na sindikalnoj sceni drastično da se oni udruže i iznesu makar u javnost situaciju. Samo se ispod žita šuška da je intervencija izvršne vlasti pa i predsjednika Republike povodom toga bila samo zato što je vlasnik kum slovačkog premijera. Druga stvar, to je pogubna posledica politike privlačenja stranih investicija gde je vlast sve vreme davala od 3 do 53.000 dolara, odnosno evra po radniku. Ja optužujem kao onaj istraživač koji se bavi radničkom klasom, a ni u jednom sindikatu nisam, domaće sindikate što su i suviše politizovani, a od 118 registrovanih političkih partija nema ni jedne koja se zalaže za radnike. Hvala vam.
Hvala vam puno. Hvala na ovom... Hvala na iscrpnom ovako, znači imamo još 3 javljanja i ako je ok, znači da primimo sva 3 javljanja i onda eventualno još neki komentar. Dakle, Tomislav Kiš, Klaus Prignic i Goran Lukić.
Pa evo ja ću vrlo kratko proći kroz ovo što je kolega rekao. Prije svega mislim da ću podijeliti to nekoliko dijelova i reći ću s čim se jako slažem, s čim se osrednje slažem i da ću nekakve alternativna rješenja u onome što je rečeno. Znači sam prvi pogled gdje je danas sindikalna scena svjetski gledano, tu nema nekakve specijalne greške, možeš to reći ovakvim onakvim riječima, ali to je u principu to. Vrlo mi je drago da je primijećeno da je socijalni dijalog svjetski gledano u principu prevara koju su sindikati progutali. Ja sam puno puta na sindikalnim skupovima u Hrvatskoj doživio od kolega čudne poglede kad kažu socijalni dijalog nema alternativu. Ja govorim, naravno da ima. Pa šta je to? Pa socijalni nemirni ljudi. Iako priznajem da su i socijalni nemirni svojevrstan socijalni dijalog, samo nekako onda on malo kvalitetnije ide. To je osnovna stvar. Druga stvar, ja se malo uvijek naježim kad mi neko spominje nekakvu strategiju, nove načine, novo ovo, novo ono. Neki će to prepisati mojim godinama, ali ja sam za stare načine. Postoji samo jedna jedina strategija pridobivanja članstva koja vrijedi, koja radi i koja je efikasna. Ona je vrlo jednostavna i kaže, ide ovako. Dokaži članu da ga u toj borbi može zaštititi i da mu se u principu ništa neće desiti. Govorimo o novim strategijama prikupljanja novih članova i znate s čim završimo? Ljudi, odite na teren. Pa to se znalo prije 150 godina. Tražimo nove oblike organiziranja. Oni mogu biti tehnički novi, podružnica ovdje, podružnica ondje, ta pravila, to se može i treba prilagoditi današnjem svijetu. Ali to je uvijek u principu isto. Bori se, dokaže da imaš snagu, promijeni stvar i zaštiti svog člana. To je jedina strategija koja donosi rezultat. I ovo što se tiče lijevih stranaka, da bar mi u Hrvatskoj imamo nekakvu lijevu stranku, mi je nažalost nemamo. Barem ne neku koja ovog časa ima nekakav značaj. Jer ono što mi u Hrvatskoj imamo pod socijaldemokratima, to je sve samo socijaldemokrati nisu. Ja sam veliki protivnik djelovanja stranaka unutar sindikata jer ih to dijeli. Ali da stranke mogu učiniti puno i iz opozicije mogu i to u onom jednom najvažnijem dijelu, a to je mijenjati zakonski okvir u kojem sindikati rade. Dajte to nešto veću slobodu, izborite se za to kroz parlamente, korigirajte zakone o radu, korigirajte zakone o reprezentativnosti koji su kočničari uglavnom i to je vaša funkcija. Onda će biti i glasova, bit će svega. Evo, ja sam imao priliku i želju samo da napravim te male opaske i hvala vam na pažnji.
Hvala.
Yeah, Klaus Prignitz, IG Metall. Thank you very much for the contribution, Florian. I have only a small remark, and I'm very curious. You talked a lot about Germany. Can you explain me how can IG Metall increase since 10 years their membership to get the most powerful trade union in Europe and to be a core member of the international structures? That's all.
Ovo je izazov. Ja ću pokušavati da budem veoma brz jer je već Tomislav izvinite, moram da stanem, ok. Ja ću pokušavati da budem veoma brz jer je već Tomislav sve skoro rekao, tako da, ali rekao bih zaista još jedanput da čini mi se, možda će biti to provokacija, da se previše govori o tom fetišu članstva. Šta to mislim s time? Upišeš ljude u sindikat ili bilo koju organizaciju koja se bavi radničkim pravima i onda je to kao kraj priče. To je onda kao membership diskurs. A šta onda? Upišeš 1000 članova u sindikat, a šta onda? Mislim, nije samo stvar o tome da ti upišeš te ljude u sindikat, odnosno bilo koju organizaciju, stvar je o tome da ti imaš te ljude unutar sindikalne scene aktivne. da onda ti ljudi onda idu i u smislu sindikata gore, da postanu zaista dobri sindikalni aktivisti, a ne samo da se ih pasivizira, da su samo članovi. Tako da nije debata o membershipu samo debata o brojkama, odnosno o članovima, nego je debata o potencijalu mobilizacije, odnosno o ljudima koji su na radnom mjestu i svako između njih može da uradi ogromno za to da se promijene bitke na radnom mjestu. Tako da meni mi se čini da bi morali se malo pomaknuti iz debate o membership density-u, o membershipu kao takvom, o tome šta se radi prije toga, da se organizirate ljudi, pa i nakon toga da ti ljudi postanu više nego samo članovi.
Hvala svima na komentarima, hvala i na pitanjima. How much time do you need? Okay. Još će Florian kratko odgovoriti na pitanja i replicirati na komentare i onda ćemo onda imamo organiziranu kafe pauzu pa se vraćamo sljedećem predavanju.
Yeah, thank you very much for your comments. I think most of it has been comments and not so much questions, and I think many of the elements we touched now will be also part later on in the debates of this whole seminar. I just wanted to answer to Klaus Prignitz, who directly asked me about then how was it possible that the IG Metall has been quite successful during the last years in getting new members. And I mean, my answer to this would be that those debates around trade union renewal is a broad debate in the trade unions that has some results. I think the IG Metall is experimenting with projects of organizing, for example, quite successfully, and is managing to win new members, although on a quite small base, let's say, yeah. And I think there are good developments like those turn towards organizing in the IG Metall. Especially, I'm very proud of how the IG Metall is organizing on an international level, trying to address the global change of capitalist production, especially through Industrial as a global union. I think we as left-wing trade unionists in the IG Metall or left forces in solidarity with the IG Metall should push forward those processes and should be part of it, should be part of this organizing orientation and should support it. At the same time, I think there are also critical elements of the politics of the IG Metall as the biggest union in Germany over the last 10 years, especially what we call the corporatism of crisis, when after the crisis of 2009, the IG Metall tries to find solution with the government, which worked quite well for those core sectors of the workforce of the IG Metall in the big automobile factories, for example, but at the same time was not so much supporting the struggle of our brothers and sisters in Greece and Southern Europe and so on, but Germany was trying to export the crisis to. And I also think that the IG Metall, as many unions, still have problems with connecting the core sectors and the precarious workforce around it. But I mean, the general picture I wanted to give was a very general picture. I hope I have not been too superficial. Generally, it's hard to generalize about trade unions because every trade union is so different, every country is so different. In Germany, we have the IG Metall with winning some new members. We have other unions losing many members, especially Verdi, the second biggest union in Germany, is in big trouble. The IG Metall, in the strong industrial basis of Germany, is still quite strong, luckily enough. Yeah, I think we have to part as leftists of those good developments, but the question of social partnership and compromise with the government and so on, I think should be critically addressed from a left perspective.
Okay. Thank you for a very wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed it. I don't have a question, just a quick comment, and that is when we are talking about transnational solidarity, one of the experiences that we are facing when we are trying to renew and do new things in the global south is the role sometimes that global north trade unions and global union federation play in disorganizing the new efforts in the global south. That is a new type of trade union imperialism, if I can call it. So we just need to be careful of that, and I really implore the broader trade union community to be respectful of different strategies and not try to disorganize new initiatives. Thank you.
Okay, now we thank you for the comment, and now we would really have to finish this this session, and have you may have the refreshments in the back for the next 10 minutes. So 10 minutes to 11 that we are back.
Imali smo još jedno pitanje pre toga, zapravo, mislim, čisto... Okay.
We can vote. So, coffee break, or a short coffee break, or a continuation of discussion, either or. I have no problem that we democratically decide, and I will not usurp the authority, but so, coffee break, hands up, please. Continuation of discussion. Continuation of discussion. Then we'll continue for another 10 minutes. Who wants to take coffee? Coffee can take coffee. Bettina, Rafi, and then Sam. That would be the round.
Yeah, I would very much like to support Ananya's point. Also in Southeast Europe, here in that region, I also see this sort of northern unions, also global union federations, to monopolize, you know, some union and union activities. And the other point I would like to make, I think it was not yet really, or I didn't hear it in your presentation, Florian. I am coordinating the work of the Clean Clothes campaign in Southeast Europe and Eastern Europe for the last 20 years, and I have met all the unions here in the garment and shoe sector in that region. And I think what is one of the most striking problems of these unions is that women workers, I'm provoking, huh? Women workers are aliens for them. They don't know really how to organize, and they have no understanding of the special situation of women, and it is male-dominated unions, and I mean the classical sort of dilemma of unions, and they consider women workers as low-income workers that don't pay high fees, and that's why it's not worth the effort of organizing them. I think that is really a big problem, and another problem is also what the colleague from Serbia has already said, that the relation with political parties and the government, for me, is a big problem in dealing and trying to cooperating with unions here in the region. Thank you very much.
Bettina, can you pass the...
Question, comment, combined is
Rafael,
you talked.
Sorry,
Rafael,
can you introduce yourself?
Rafael Kamchi from Israel, the Social Economic Academy, an organizer. And the question is, you talked about reviving the unions and reviving left-wing parties. And the question is how? You have two models. One is build new unions. The other one is radicalization or democratization of the old ones. The same ways with parties. New ones or radicalization of old structures. And there's a big debate in Israel around that. On the union side, I have half an answer. Okay, we formed a new union in Israel in 2007 called Power to the Workers. A real, from bottom to up, democratic union, which in many ways, 10 years after, changed the old in a little bit, you know, it's a big ship, a little bit the old unions, because they have to organize too now, or they're going to lose whatever they left. About parties, I don't know, maybe you have an idea.
Thank you, Rafi. And Sam, and then we'll give Florian the floor and end this session.
So this is Sam Nelson from Jobs with Justice. So you made a comment earlier about how the unions in the past didn't really have to organize. They could just basically walk into a factory and it was union. And so I want to push back on that a little. And I think particularly coming from the US experience, it's less that they now have to start organizing, and it's more kind of a reckoning for the organizing that they actively did not do in the past. So in the US, you know, the women-dominated unions were very small because no resources were put into them. Unions were segregated by race, with the contracts of the, you know, Black workers or Latino workers being much worse than the industrial white workers. So I think it's more of a kind of a reorientation to the organizing that they should have been doing for decades, and really the organizing that they haven't been doing plays a part in why the kind of collapse of traditional unionism has been occurring in the West in general.
Thank you, Sam. Florian?
Yeah, thank you very much for contributions and questions again. So to close this first part, I just want to answer a little bit to Bettina and what Rafa was saying. Bettina was on the one hand saying that there are also problematic elements in the approach of northern unions towards the global south and the work of the trade union federations that often are pushing forward some politics of like social dialogue and social partnership and so on, also in the South. I mean, for example, many of you will know the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, the FES, here in the Balkans. The Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, for example, I mean, it's not a secret that they belong to the Social Democratic Party in Germany, we belong to the Left Party in Germany, and we have different strategic orientations. And in the global union federations, for example, in Industrial, which is very much dominated by the IG Metall, is also pushing also on a global level some models of, in a way, these German unions are trying to export their model of social partnership into other countries. I think our approach toward this should be that, although I do not believe, I mean, I'm a socialist, I want to overthrow the whole capitalist system and so on, but for the bad situation we are in, any kind of a new social partnership would already be a big progress. No doubt about it. I mean, if we would be managed to force capital into new forms of cooperation with the workers' movement and also benefit for the workers, it would be a huge step forward for our side. I just don't believe that we can come to a new model of social partnership by the methods of the old social partnership. I think we have to scare capital again. We have to come to a situation where capital is so scared of worker struggle, of an escalation of worker struggle, that they will be forced into new compromises. That would be already okay. So, yeah. Bettina was also addressing the question of women workers. I mean, I think that if we talk about renewal of trade unions, the experience of mobilizing women is one of the most important resources we have. For example, in Germany, in the last 20 years, there have been a whole range of new strike movements led by women, especially in the retail sector, young women, migrant women, and so on. But also in the hospitals, also in the childcare. It has been mainly female workforces that went into strike over the last years. So in Germany, the picture that people have in mind about strikes and workers have really changed. In the 80s, it has been the classical male, white worker. It has the face of like the workers' movement we're thinking about. If you today think about striking workers, you have the image of young women going on strike in Germany very much. Yeah, all those retail sector, hospitals, care work, and so on have been strikes led by women. So I think if we talk about a renewal of trade union movements, it has to be also a debate about a feminization of the trade union movements and putting those experiences of female workers in the center of our research and thinking and strategies. So I think that the role of women inside the union is growing very much, and we should much more focus on it. You look very critically. Maybe we can have this debate later on. Last point, very difficult question asked by Rafa. Should we organize new trade unions or change the old ones? And what about the left parties? I mean, it's very hard to generalize because conditions are so differently. In Germany, we're absolutely clear. We do not try to build new trade unions. We are part of the United Trade Unions in Germany. We organize inside those unions, trying to push them to the left. In Germany, I think this is a correct orientation. In other countries, it might be different. But there's a big difference between the role of unions and the role of left parties. I mean, a trade union should try to cover the whole working class, not regarding their real political orientation, but bringing all the workers together to defend their interests. So generally, at least, unions should be as broad as possible to be able to defend capital. There might be a situation where another strategy is more clever, but generally, we try to have the broadest possible unions. I think political parties of the left have to play a different role. I mean, we have to offer alternative ideologies and strategic orientations. We have to promote a different model of society, and this needs visibility of left forces. So I would generally argue that we need to build clear and visible left forces, even if they are small, that act on their own and independently, promoting a socialist program and promoting socialist strategies, but at the same time trying to build the broadest possible alliance of workers inside of their trade unions to be able to confront capital. So I think, yeah, it's different areas of unions and parties. Thank you very much, everyone. Some were looking very critically. Also, Klaus was not happy with my answer. We can discuss later on. Thank you for being here.
Hvala Florian, hvala svima. Slijedi uvod u drugu temu. Za 5 minuta idemo na organizing and campaigning in the public sector.